$1.5 trillion. This according to a Defense Department report. That's how much the U.S. military has spent in operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. And that's what it's cost American taxpayers since the September 11th attacks 17 years ago. But a new report from the 9/11 Commission claims extremism poses a greater global threat today than it did back in 2001. The report goes on to say that the war in Afghanistan, initiated to defeat al-Qaeda and the Taliban, shows no sign of ending. So was that $1.5 trillion well spent? And are we safer today than we were before 9/11? Joining me now, Iraq War veteran and KFI AM 640 host, Bryan Suits, who, in fact, fought in Iraq in the shadow of 9/11. So how much did your life change after 9/11, Suits?
Well, you remember, there we were in Seattle on that day, and my life took a pivot. My colleagues in talk radio have never left the country. I was in the Army National Guard. I'd been in Desert Storm, been to Bosnia. So I was sent to officer candidate school, and at the age of 37, I became a second lieutenant. And then I served for a year and a half as a infantry officer in Iraq, and it changed. It changed quite a bit. It changed me quite a bit. The good news is my daughter is going to go to UCLA for free. But it changed my perspective on a lot of things. And I think you can attest, maybe if it was possible for me to get more cynical, I actually did get more cynical. Being wounded, now being deaf in this ear, and shrapnel and all that, that's the cost of doing business. I volunteered. I joined the Army National Guard decades ago. I volunteered for OCS. I signed up for war, and I got my war.
You did
I do any good?
Let's talk about that war. Have we won?
I think that the goal line was not eliminate radical Islamic terrorism. The goal line was never let that happen to America again. And I would suffer to point out to people that since 9/11, it's never happened again. And in a way, I don't have a problem being downrange and catching the shrapnel that was meant for Glendale or Pasadena. If we served a purpose, then possibly being a bullet magnet for all the jihadists who couldn't get a visa to flight school in Minnesota, they came to Iraq. And I mean, I don't want to be flypaper for Adam Henry's, but I do think that we thinned out the gene pool of really crazy radicals.
But let's talk a little bit about this 9/11 Commission report, the remaining members and those who have been added to the commission, saying that the threat is greater today than it was. And perhaps there are active theaters, but that still means a loss of life for not only American servicemen and women, but also civilians over there. It's incredibly expensive, and we're still very much in Afghanistan, which is our longest war, which isn't slowing down.
Yeah, I would point out to people that the Indian Wars here in North America went from 1622 to 1924. And in all likelihood, if we want to be proactive and prevent Islamic terrorism from reaching us here in the United States or in Europe, we do have to engage them downrange in the Sahara, Northern Africa. I worked as a private contractor in Djibouti, and I know that this is an ideology that appeals to young men. And it's not like young men are, the next generation is going to suddenly say, boy, taking up an AK-47 is not a really sexy way to spend my 20s. It's never going to go away because it's almost baked into the cake.
But that's essentially what we're imploring young men to do in this country. And that has been the marketing. That has been the sell, that somehow you appeal to these young men and you say it is sexy to brandish, high-powered machinery and take people's lives. If I were one of the Gold Star mothers who had lost someone on one of these battlefields, I would look at the fact that we're still here so long after 9/11, and I would feel pretty hopeless.
Yeah, but, keep in mind the appeal, the marketing appeal, the recruiting appeal is your country continues to be under attack. Will you tote a rifle and spend a couple of years defending it? It's not, let's go to Mecca and convert them to Christianity. let's go right these infidels. That's not the appeal. It's apples and oranges for Americans joining the military service. I don't want to be in constant war, and I don't want to hand my daughter off, to a war. But it's naive to think that if we walk away, it goes away. And yes, it's been expensive. Keep in mind, if World War II was fought in 2005, it would have cost $20 trillion. It is expensive. National defense is expensive. And I wish that there was an end to it. But what would the end look like? Nuking Mecca?
This is what I've always said. If you can get all the bad guys in one place in the middle of the desert, yes, you drop a nuclear weapon on them.
That's what I would do.
I mean, isn't that the best plan?
Not Mecca, because I do know
It doesn't have to be Mecca. I said in the middle of the desert. You said Mecca.
And like I say, personally, I owe my life to 3 translators who are now U.S. citizens who put their lives on the line for my men in 1st Battalion, 161 Infantry, and myself. I owe them my life.
Yes.
I know the difference between...
And we owe you a debt of gratitude. And for all of those people who signed up after 9/11, I mean, that to me is true heroicism. For people who enlisted in the military, it's not, sorry, whatever. But, also firefighters and cops and people who felt that call to duty after 9/11. There's something truly special about that. I prefer freedom over war. I think there might be a better way to get there. Perhaps it's not abandoning it, but,
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the guys who are already wearing the uniform before 9/11, by the way, like Jimmy Stewart a year before Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
And that type. But I also enjoy the guys who joined afterwards.
I do, too. I enjoy all of you guys. Wink.
By guys, I mean men and women.
Okay, very good. Whatever you're into. Libertarian, don't judge. Thank you, Suits.
You'd have been a good troop.
I appreciate that. That is a high compliment, especially from you. But this is my shooting hand. Not good.